Shalom. We're going to read through Parashat Tavo. If anyone wants to raise your hand or annotate on the screen, here's how you do it. And let's jump right into it. Who would like to read? Eileen, I see your hand up. You want to read first?
Yep.
All right, go right ahead. Do you want me to
Right.
split it up into syllables or you got this?
Yeah, let's put the syllables.
Sure, sure. I'll work on that. Let's see. Is this it? Yeah, I think this is it. So that going, I would split here. And you just begin whenever you're ready.
Okay. Vaya hei ki
Vehaya.
vehaya ki tovo
Kitavo, the name of the parsha.
kitavo al haaretz
El Haaretz.
asher Adonai le ha
Elohecha, your God.
Elohecha oh, Elohecha Nathan
Close. It's the same root, but it's noten.
noten. Okay, noten. Loha,
Lecha.
laha, neha, leha, no, neha.
Okay, so the line make more of an ah instead of eh. Naha. La.
Naha, nahala.
That's it. Nachala.
Okay.
V.
Vihi, vihi, she'at.
Flip it around. Ta. Virishta.
Heta, virishta,
Yep.
vehi eshvot.
Now, the reason I'm splitting it into syllables so you can take these one step at a time. So this is via,
Veya
shav,
shavot.
ta. No, ta, because it's got the
Ta.
kamatz under it.
Right,
And
ta.
then last word down here
Bo.
with the kamatz on the bottom, bah.
Bah. Bah.
And there's that mapik we talked about last week that makes the wait, was it the last? I don't know. It all comes together. The mapik in the middle, which makes the consonantal hey sound.
Bah.
Very good. Bah. All right, very good. Let me read through it one time. I'll leave the syllable divisions up there as I read through it. If anyone wants to follow along, I highly encourage it. Just put your microphone on mute until we're done reading and then turn it back on. V'haya ki tavo el haaretz asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha nachala virishtah v'yashavtah. Well, actually, the accent's right there, isn't it? V'yashavtah bah. Okay. This is pretty straightforward. I really don't see anything complicated here. Okay, so the name of the parsha is Ki Tavo. What's Tavo?
Will come.
Right. Yeah. The Tav is either you or she. So here we're probably talking about you, especially since we have cha on those two words and ta on that one. So Ki Tavo, when you enter or come El Haaretz, into the land. Okay, remember Deuteronomy. We're reading through Deuteronomy. This is the monologue from Moses before Israel goes into the promised land. So he's saying, when you enter into the land, Asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha, which the Lord your God, there's that cha, Noten, is this a participle?
Yes.
Of course, yeah. It's a participle. He is giving lecha to you. Nachala. Well, that's a weird construction to just place a noun after a complete thought, isn't it? When you see an awkward noun, what does it usually serve as? Some sort of adverb. How did he give it to you? As nachala, for a nachala, as an inheritance or for an inheritance. I don't know if you could really, well, okay. I don't know if you would call that a, yeah, I guess so, because there's no preposition next to it. It's simply implied. Anyway, virishta. Oh, how do I break this word up into its individual components? Do you see anything on here that we could peel away?
The Vav.
The Vav.
Okay, there's a vav. We can peel away. What is the vav?
And.
Vayikol.
Mm-hmm. It's actually not vayiktol, nor is it vekatal. We'll get to that in just a second. It's and.
It's an and.
And.
Mhm. What else can we peel away?
The kamats and the hay.
I am so silly. It is a vekatal, isn't it? Jared, you big dum-dum. It's a vekatal. Of course it is. It's a vekatal. What does that mean, vekatal?
It's
Incomplete.
future.
Incomplete past tense.
Incomplete, usually future, but incompleted.
Okay.
So it takes the suffix of katal, and katal is usually completed or past tense, but the vav on the front flips it, and so it turns it into incompleted. Well, if this is from the root possessing, has anyone possessed the land yet? No. Moses is still waxing eloquent in the desert, and everyone's like, okay, can we go already? So therefore, nobody's inherited, nobody's possessed yet. Nobody has possessed the land yet. It's important to make that distinction. So it's a katal, but it hasn't happened yet. It has to be a vekatal. What about the suffix here? What can I peel away?
It's her or it, and it's relating to the land, I think.
Very good. So we've got a 3fs suffix referring back to the land. Now this kamatz here is serving double duty. What do I mean by that?
It goes with the
Masculine, yeah.
two MFs, right?
2ms, that's one. And then the other one is what she
It
means
goes
is,
with the hey.
right, exactly. So we've got the hey on the end, 3fs. That's one of the jobs of the kamatz. And then the other is ta. Virishta. Now, when I saw the kamatz hey initially, I thought, oh, that belongs to the 3fs. So this is not a vekatal. It clearly must be something else, like an infinitive, and I was wrong. This is a 2ms vekatal. You will, what's the root?
Yod resh.
Reshet.
Exactly. Yod reshin or lareshet, and it means to possess or inherit. So, and you shall possess or inherit her, the land, v'yashavta. Same. Is that also vekatal? Wait. I was under the impression that if you have a 2ms or 1cs vekatal, the stress should be at the end. So what am I supposed to do? Follow this rule as though it were a sometimes rule, or assume that somebody is already dwelling in the land, even though they're still on the other side of the Jordan?
Dwelling in the land on the side of the Jordan.
The context clearly demands this is a vekatal.
Yes.
So even though the Masoretes put a stress right there, I know from the context it has to be a vekatal. Wait. Well, then what's the purpose of the rule if it only works sometimes? Why wouldn't they just put the stress on the end? Why would they move it, especially if it's a vekatal? This is a serious question. Anybody know the answer? Why did they move the stress over here if it's a vekatal?
Because they knew we were going to be sitting here on a Sunday trying to figure it out.
Okay, excellent answer. However, I think it has more to do with Hebrew not putting two stressed syllables in a row. So rather than having v'yashavta bah, so that you have two stressed syllables in a row, it moves it over one so that it's v'yashavta bah. Okay, that's what's this is something that is very common in the Hebrew Bible, where a vekatal doesn't have the right stress, and it's usually because the following syllable is also stressed. Are there exceptions besides that? I'm sure there are. It's biblical Hebrew. But at least here we have a pretty good explanation. Any comments or questions before we move on to a long
I
verse
do have a
2?
question.
Yeah,
I
go
do
ahead,
have a
William.
question. Regarding this, the stress syllable,
Mhm.
is it because of the cantillation marks? Is this so that it can flow?
Yes.
So when you're reciting,
Right. If your question is why the Masoretic scribes didn't put two stressed syllables in a row, yes, it's so that it flows.
makes sense now.
Jesse, would you like to read?
Oh, sure.
All right, all yours. This is the next verse.
ולקחת מראשית כל פרי האדמה אשר תביא מארצך אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך ושמת בטנא והלכת אל המקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיך לשכן שמו שם.
Very good. You went so much faster than I can annotate. Okay, there we go. I don't need to reread it. You did a fantastic job, but for the sake of consistency, I'm going to go ahead and read it. Follow along with me if you all would like to. Velakachta mereshit kol pri ha'adama asher tavi me'artzecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach ושמת ותנא והלכת אל המקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיך לשכן שמו שם. This is a formula that we see over and over in the Torah. The timing of the books of Moses is before the tabernacle exists. So instead of calling it the tabernacle or the temple eventually, it always shows up as that place or the place that the Lord shall choose to establish or put or cause to dwell his name there. It's a very clunky Hebrew translation, literal translation from the Hebrew, but that's how it shows up. Velakachta. Vekatal?
Yes.
Of course, because of the stress there at the end. Velakachta. And you shall take, lakach, mereshit. What's the root of mereshit?
Rosh.
Rosh. Yeah, we've got me at the front, from. We've got an eat suffix. I don't want to say suffix. I want to call it a, stop it. What's the word? It's not a preclative. It's a I hate calling it a suffix because it's actually part of the structure of the word, but I can't think of the right word at this moment, so I'm just going to call it a suffix, even though it's not. And so Rosh, or Resh Aleph Shin, is the root. This aleph is a guttural. It causes the vowels to change quite a bit. That's why we get O for Rosh, E for Rishon, E for Reshit. It's all over the place. Mereshit, from the beginning. Wait, does this word show up in the first verse of the Bible?
Bereshit.
Close, yeah. Instead of mereshit, it's bereshit, bereshit. But reshit is the key, the principal component of the word. Yes, that shows up as the first word of the Bible in the reshit. But here we're not talking about the beginning of time. What are we talking about? The reshit of all of the fruit of the earth. So the first, the beginning,
Fruits?
the
The first
foremost.
fruits?
Exactly. So this is something of a tithe, donation, offering that you're supposed to take the first of all the fruit of the earth. Asher tavi, which you shall bring, me'artzecha, from your, there's the your, from your arts. What is arts? What's the original? It's the original form of aretz, right? And we know it better as aretz or eretz, but that's the original form right there, arts. Me'artzecha, from your land. Asher tells us more information about your land. Asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach, which the Lord your God is giving to you. You feminine?
Mm.
No, it's masculine.
It certainly looks feminine, but because of the context, we know it's masculine
Yes.
you. So what gives?
Causal
does it look
form or
Awesome.
space?
Pausal.
Consolidation.
Pausal.
Also,
Pausal is the answer.
Causal?
Yeah, pausal form. Those pausal forms will mess with the vowels, won't they? So instead of la ha, since we have the stress right here, and now we have an unstressed ha right here, the
Yeah.
Hebrew reduces it, right? Pausal form brings back this kamatz, but by bringing this back, it moves the stress over here. Now you have an unstressed long syllable, unstressed long vowel, which drops to shva. Oh my goodness, really? So this is 2ms. We know it from the context. So we're going to chalk it up to pausal form. That means when we're reading, we pause after this. Noten lach, pause. Vesamta vaten. And you shall, I only see 2 root letters. What's the root of vesamta?
Shin, Yud, Mem.
Very good. Sin, yod, mem. So this is one of those roots that has a yod or a vav in the middle, what I call hollow roots, because the yod or vav acts more like a vowel than it does a consonant, and it often goes missing, like here. Vesamta, and you shall you shall put vaten into a basket. Tene. Why do we say vatene instead of batene?
So there's a vowel before it.
Yeah, the vowel before it scares away the weak dagesh and creates a v sound, of course. Vehalachta, also vekatal.
Yes.
The answer is yes, but you can't tell from this cantillation mark. Even though it looks like it's hanging over the tav, it always comes at the end, or this particular one always comes at the end of a syllable. Not to be confused with that one. They look the same, but this one shows up on the syllable. This one shows up after the word. So even if it were, so there's another one right there. See? It should be right here where the stress syllable starts. Yiv har. So this cantillation mark is not to be trusted about where the stress is. There are only a few of them that don't show where the stress is. This is one of them. And you shall go el hamakom, to that, or to the place, asher yivchar Adonai, which he will choose, that is the Lord will. The Lord who? Elohecha, your God. Duh. Leshaken. Does anyone know a word related to this root?
Shechem.
Shechina,
Say it again.
Shechem
Shchuna,
or Shechem?
Shchuna,
Okay, shchuna. Does anyone, what does that mean? Shchuna.
neighborhood.
Neighborhood.
Very good. It's a neighborhood. That's modern Hebrew. Uh-huh. That's good. Any others? I can think of 2. 3.
Mishkan,
Very good. Mishkan.
Mm.
What is a mishkan?
it's the temple
Mm.
or tabernacle. Tabernacle.
Very good. Tabernacle. There's a difference between temple and tabernacle, right? What's the difference?
One is temporary, like in the desert, and the
Okay.
other is the temple, the built temple.
Okay. All right. So the Mishkan is the one that came first. It's the tent that we call tabernacle.
Dwelling place.
Tabernacle in Latin means dwelling place.
Yeah.
And Mishkan comes from the root shachen, which means dwell, the place of dwelling. So it's a perfect translation from the Hebrew to the Latin. And some literal translations won't call it a tabernacle, they'll call it a dwelling place or something like that. What about Shekhinah?
Shekinah comes from the same root.
Presence.
Mhm.
Presence.
Shekhinah is the same. Good. Shekhinah is not, it's not a word. I'm pretty sure it's not a word that shows up in the Bible, but it does show up in rabbinic texts that talk about the presence of God. And you'll hear it in churches, Shekinah glory, this, that, and the other. It comes from this, Shekhinah, the dwelling, the presence of God. All right, that's
It's all throughout Ezra's commentaries.
Ibn Ezra, I assume you're saying, right?
Uh,
Ezra wrote the book of the Bible called Ezra, but Ibn Ezra is the rabbinic commentator.
what were the series of books attributed to Ezra in the commentaries?
Oh,
I for some reason I'm thinking Talmud. It's not Talmud. It's
okay.
um
Okay.
Do they use shechen or shechenim, like neighbors, as biblical?
Absolute. Oh. In the biblical
In modern,
times
yeah.
is Shechem. Okay. Shechem.
It's
I
rehu.
don't think so. I
So
think Ehu is going to be a lot more common, but that's more like, fellow, kin, folk, not folk. That's folk is fellow, friend. Yeah. No, I don't think it's used as a neighbor because I'm not sure if they had neighbors in the sense that we have them today with nice organized neighborhoods with the one on your right and one on your left and one in your front. My question that I was trying to get around to though was leshaken. What binyan is this verb?
shechen.
It's an infinitive.
Okay, so I heard shachen, that's the root. I've heard infinitive, and that's true. But what binyan? There are 7 binyanim. Which one is it? Is it kal, nifal, hefil, pual? Which one is it?
PL?
PL. Very good. PL has this form of the infinitive. So here's my question. If shachan or shachen means to dwell, then what does it mean when you put it into an intensive PL form? I'm
Lishkon.
really dwelling. No.
Lishkon.
Yeah. Okay. So lishkon means to dwell, and it's a kal infinitive. Now here we're looking at a PL infinitive. What's the difference between simple action lishkon to dwell versus the intensive lishaken? How do you intensely dwell? You don't. What's the difference between limlo or no, I don't want to call it okay, let's call it likrov versus lekarev. Actually, that may not be no, that's not going to be a good example, is it? Because of the resh and because it's a word we don't know very well. What I want to say is male versus mile. Let's do that one instead. What is male?
Full.
Filled.
Oh,
Uh-huh. Male means he or it was full. What is mile?
Filled, he filled.
Right. He essentially caused or made something to be full. So we get to see this almost causative voice in PL verbs. Wait. Isn't causative he feel? So why do we see it here in PL? Well, that's the point I'm getting at. If you have a state of being verb, like malay or karev or tzameh, ayef, one of those verbs, then in the PL, it is making that state of being true. That is, causing it. Male to be full, mile to fill something, lishkon to dwell, lishaken
To establish.
establish.
to make dwell. To make
Mhm.
dwell, exactly. So here they call it establish because it sounds less clunky, and I'm fine with that. To make dwell his name there. Where's the place that he will make dwell his name?
Place.
Huh? Where's the place where he will make dwell his name?
The temple.
Jerusalem.
Okay.
Mm.
Line.
Jerusalem.
Olam.
Oh my goodness, this is awesome. Okay, we are on the next verse. Any comments or questions, or next reader?
Yeah, the word I
Okay.
couldn't remember was the Targumim.
Okay. Yeah, you'll see them in the Targumim, absolutely. Aramaic translations of the Hebrew Bible. All right, Thomas, do you want to read?
Yes.
Bitte.
ובאת אל הכהן אשר יהיה בימים ההם, ואמרת אליו, הגדתי היום לאדוני אלוהיך, כי באתי אל הארץ, אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותינו לתת לנו.
Very good. Okay, look at that second to last word. You read it fine because that's usually how it's pronounced with the
Latet.
stress on la tete. But look at what they did
Latet.
here. Why?
Yeah. It's imperative.
Remember earlier when the vekatal didn't have the stress in the right place?
Because
Mhm.
Lanu has it in the first syllable.
Very good. We can't put a stress syllable next to a stress syllable. So they moved it over to here so that it flows better, like William mentioned. All right, so instead it would be la tetlanu. Sounds a little off, but that's what the cancellation mark is telling us to do.
Mhm.
All right, let me read through one time. Uvata, and in fact, we don't know if it's uvata or uvata because that cancellation mark doesn't really tell us. So we'll just assume that it's vekatal. Put it right there. Uvata el hakohen asher yihye bayamim hahem. Ve'amarta elav higadti hayom לאדוני אלוהיך, כי באתי אל הארץ, אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותינו לתת לנו. Okay, so we already talked about, oh, by the way, if it were latet, what vowel would be here under the tav?
Serious.
Mhm.
Very good. So the usual form latet has a long
Oh,
vowel and a
yes.
closed syllable, which must get the stress. So if the Masoretes wanted to move it to somewhere else, they now need to follow the Rouse rule, and they put a short vowel.
Mhm.
Latet. Latet
Mhm.
lano. It sounds so funny to my ears, but whatever. It's cool to learn something new. Okay, so that's vekatal, 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 not vekatal. Oh, what? wait. I thought Vekatal is incompleted future. So we've got future, future, future. No, that's not it right there. Future. That's not Vekatal. So I'll put a square around it instead. And that's not Vekatal. And that's okay. I'll go ahead and include that too, even though it's not I or you who are the subject. Okay, so why do we see Vekatal, and then shift gears to regular Katal?
It's like in quotes because they're
Oh. It's not like in I see what you're saying. It's as if there were quotations.
Yeah.
This is direct speech. This is someone is being
Mhm.
quoted. Absolutely. So if this is direct speech, what we don't expect to see is vekatals and vayiktals. Apparently, are there exceptions? Yes, there are. But usually you don't expect a direct quote to be to contain vekatals or vayiktals. So here we have ve'amalta, and you shall say elav, to him, to whom? To the Cohen, the priest that will be there in those days. This is what you shall say. Because of this revia, we've got a slight pause right here because we're starting a quote. And where does the quote end? Higadti. What is higid? What's the verb higid or higadati?
Tell?
Yeah,
Say?
exactly. Higid, to tell, say.
To declare.
Thomas, when you were reading, you hiccuped just a little bit here, and for a very good reason.
Higadti.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a silent schwa, and we can tell because
Yeah.
there's a weak dagesh in the following letter. Yet, how do you pronounce higadti? Because dalit and tav sound so similar. How do you pronounce this with a silent schwa?
Yeah.
So
Why?
It's a trick
Higad-
question. It's a trick question
the
because
T.
the dalit here was not always pronounced duh. Remember, dalit is a begad kafat letter. So when it had
Yeah.
a dot in it, it was duh.
Yeah.
But what about when there was no dot in it?
is
We have a soft D. D.
The. Now,
Ah,
this is not modern pronunciation,
It's
but it
Arabic.
was
The.
true when the Masoretic scribes wrote down all of their dots and nikud. So this would have been higazti. Higazti.
Higadti.
It's
Oh, yes.
I feel like I have a lisp when I'm saying it. Higazti. But that's why they put a silent schwa, because in their day, it was a silent schwa. And then modern Hebrew stopped pronouncing the and pronounced it only as duh. So now you basically have to pronounce it as though it were an audible schwa. Same thing that happens
Yeah.
whenever you get the same letter twice with a schwa on the first one that's supposed to be silent.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a bad example, but I say it's a bad example, but it's a wonderful word. Hallelujah, right? Hallelujah is a wonderful word. But the problem is that it's hal-lu. But we don't say hallelu, we say hallelu because we get the same letter one after the other. Now, the reason I say it's a bad example is because it's supposed to be a PL and therefore have a strong dagesh in the lamed, but it's a lamed, a liquid letter, so it rejects the dagesh when there's a shval in it. Oh my goodness, there's just so many rules. It's hard to remember them all. Anyway, the point is if you see two consecutive letters that are the same, you'll pretty much have to pronounce it as an audible shva. Enough about these shvas. Higadati hayom. I profess this day ladonai, to the Lord. Elohecha, your God. Why not my God? So your God, that means he's speaking to the Kohen. Have you ever heard this before where someone's talking, you're like, oh, he believes in God, but then he says, the Lord, your God. How about Eleazar, the servant of Abraham, who went to go find a bride for Isaac? Remember when he said, the God of my master, right? it's like, why doesn't he say it's his own God too? Well, it is, but he's showing showing, was that deference or honor to his master or something like that. Kivati, I have come el haaretz, to the country, to the land, asher mishba Adonai el. Okay, so this is a formula that Moses is telling the Israelites that they will need to say when they bring their tithes, offerings, sacrifices to the place where God will put his name, Jerusalem. This is what they are to say. Who's the next reader?
Can I have a quick question?
Sure.
Okay,
What's your
so we discussed the double lamed there. What is the significance again of a single word being repeated twice in succession?
Usually emphasis. Did you see one here repeated?
In a previous class, we had one in Zechariah, and he repeats it
Oh, yeah.
twice.
Yeah. And if
And
it's 3 times, it is an absolute superlative. So when you hear something like holy, 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 you know, the cherubim, is it the cherubim or seraphim? Saying holy, holy, holy 3 times, it's like, oh, that's the emphasis of all emphases or something like that. Yeah,
so
it's
it's the
usually for
emphasis.
emphasis.
It's just the
Mhm.
emphasis on the word. So it's just the emphasis on the word.
I would, yeah, I can't think of any examples right now where it's not, but in some places, I guess it could be poetic, especially if you have a repetition of a root in a verb and a noun or something like that. That's not sheer repetition. But yeah, other than that, I would say emphasis. Sure.
Thank you.
All right, who's the next reader? Cheryl, have you read yet?
No, I haven't, but I will.
This is a little itty bitty verse.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It's so small. I wonder if anyone else would like to read such a cute little
Good idea.
verse so Cheryl could have the next monster.
Thank you.
Nobody? Tim, would you like to read?
Sure.
All right, go ahead.
Vaya valachak achuhen ne mi yadecha vehiniko lifne mizbach Adonai Eloheka.
Excellent. And again, you're reading so much faster than I can annotate. Where would I divide this word into 2 syllables? Does anyone know?
Are we supposed to, or we get struck
No.
out?
Right? There's a rabbinic curse. Don't do it. Yeah, without the correct vowels on here, it's kind of a trick question, right? But if you put the correct vowels on there, then we would know for sure. As far as academics understand it, it would be divided right there as 2 syllables, but
Yeah, five.
yeah, exactly. So, and then there, and all done. Okay, excellent. Let me read through it. Follow along if you all would like to. Thank you, Tim, for reading. Velakach hakohen hatene miyadecha. So this is still continuing the prescription from the preceding verse. Vehinicho lifnei mizbach Adonai Elohecha. Does anyone see a construct chain in this little itty bitty verse? What is a construct chain? Usually 2 nouns butted up next to each other with an of relationship.
Yeah, something of something.
Lifnei mizbech,
Basket from your basket hand.
mizbach, lifnei mizbech.
Cheryl?
Well, lifnei it's like to the face of, so lifnei is like a plural masculine. No, lifnei.
Yeah, keep going.
Mizbach Adonai.
What about Elohecha?
Lord your God.
All right. So what
Got
Cheryl
it.
is saying is Lifnei Mizbach Adonai, and my question is, do we end it here or do we end it there? Is there an of relationship between these two?
It's just matching it. It's not an of.
Very good.
Yes.
That's called apposition. I think there are two P's because it's no, is it apposition? I don't know. No, whatever. Apposition. Google it. Which is to say, like Jerry, my barber. I'm not saying Jerry of my barber, right? I'm saying Jerry, who is also my barber. So here we have Adonai, that is Elohecha, your God. Again, speaking to the Kohen. Good. I'm so glad you included Pene here.
Yeah.
Not everybody would. Why? Because lifnei, even though it is technically a preposition plus a plural noun, it is used as though the entire thing were a preposition, just like the word before. Lifnei means before, which is a preposition. Well, no, le is the preposition. Pene is a noun, but it's used like a preposition. Anyway, so excellent. I'm so glad you didn't get caught up in calling that just a plain preposition. We got lifnei or le pene mizbach. Did you notice the vowel change here?
Mizbach, it should be mizbeach.
No, it shouldn't.
Why?
If it were absolute, it should
Because
be
it's
mizbeach.
because it's
Exactly.
construct. Because it's construct.
Very good. Very, very good. Okay, so if this were by itself or if it were an absolute, it would be mizbeach. And that tzere has dropped down to a short vowel, albeit a patach, because it's in construct. Before to the face, or does a mizbach have a face? Well, figuratively, face or front of the mizbach, the altar of Adonai Elohecha. Okay, I think I'm good with that. Next verse is
I have a
for.
question.
Go ahead, William.
When you were dividing Adonai and on the Vav, is there a reason why you would put the split the syllable on the Vav?
Sorry, I think somebody else might have drawn the purple line and it was
Oh,
just
okay.
off by a hair, but I divide between the hay and the vav. That's all. And I think that's
Okay.
what the other drawer or annotator was trying to do as well.
Okay, that's what that had me confused. I apologize.
Sure. The vav is just such a skinny letter. It's hard to get it perfectly. Sorry about that.
It's cool.
All right.
Just
Next
this down, day down. Today I was wrong.
Happens to the best of us, man. We're all wrong sometimes, right? Cheryl, this is your longer verse. Would you like to read?
Okay, sure.
Mhm.
Ve'anita, ve'amarta לפני אדוני אלוהיך ארמי עובד אבי וירד מצרימה ויגר
Mm,
ויגור
Vayago.
ויגור מאץ קטן שם במתי במתי
Bimte. That's right.
מעט ויהי שם לגוי גדול עצום ורב.
Excellent. Excellent. Ve'anita ve'amarta lifnei Adonai Elohecha arami oved avi vayered mitzrayma vayagor sham bimte me'at ויהי שם לגוי גדול atzum varav. Okay, this is actually a hot, I won't say hotly contested or variously interpreted verse. Remember, we're still going through the formula that one is supposed to say when he comes to Jerusalem with his goods. First things first. This is Vekatal. It does not have final stress. There's another one. Here's Vekatal, Lifnei Adonai, and you shall. Wait a second. Va'anita, is that usually translated as speak?
Oh,
Answered.
answer.
Yeah,
Anna.
usually it's translated as to answer. At least in modern Hebrew, it's the verb that means to answer. However, there are places where it's translated as singing, even. So apparently it used to have more to do with just vocalizing something than it was necessarily replying or responding. And I mean, that's kind of how it's being used here. Did the Kohen ask him a question and now he's answering? No, not really. So that's why they translate it as speak instead of answer. Ve'amarta lifnei Adonai Elohecha. Okay, so ve'amarta, that usually acts like a quotation mark, or some form of amar acts like a beginning quotation mark. So does that mean the quote starts here? No, because we're saying it to the Lord your God. Okay, go to your cantillation mark over here. That's where you begin. This is what you shall say. Arami oved avi. Okay, how do you translate that? Who is an Arami? It's easy. The translation's right there.
Airman.
Yeah, Aram is the land of Aram, and the language they speak is Arami, Aramaic. So this is an Aramean with that gentilic yod on the end of it. One who is an Aramean. Oved, this is the one that causes us some problems. Let's skip over it for now. Who is Avi?
My father.
My
My
father.
father. Okay, which father?
The Aramean.
Oh, so this guy and this guy are one and the same.
Aramean. No, he's saying my father was an Aramean. Ready to
Okay.
perish.
Right.
Ready to
So
perish.
it's almost like an equal symbol. This is that, right? So Arami, Aramean, my father, they're one and the same. Which father was an Aramean?
The speaker's father.
The Israelite. So this is a question of history. Which patriarch is an Aramean?
Abraham, I'm sure.
Jacob.
Oh. Who is saying it?
Okay, currently what we have is an arbitrary Israelite who is coming to the place where God will eventually put his name, and he brought his fruit of the ground to give as a tithe, and this is the formula that he's supposed to be saying in the presence of the Kohen, the priest, at the Jerusalem temple or tabernacle. Okay, so we're still inside the context of the formula. So my father would be that arbitrary Israelite's father or forefather or patriarch. An Aramean, Oved Avi.
Oh, Shem.
Shem. So here's the here's the kicker. Abraham came from Ur. I know it's called Ur of the Chaldeans, but the Chaldeans didn't exist yet. He came from Ur, which was essentially an Assyrian or probably Akkadian or Assyrian influenced by Sumerian. The Arameans didn't move that way yet. It isn't until the Babylonian Empire that we see Arameans coming all the way over to the ancient Near East over there. The Arameans started closer in Syria. And as they made their way across, then they tackled the Babylonian Empire, and then we think of Aramaic in Babylonia. But before that, it was not so. Oy, 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 oy. So who spoke Aramaic that we know of in the Bible? Laban,
Mm.
right? Remember when Jacob and Laban had kind of a what do you call that? A splitting, a fallout, and Jacob took his wives and children and beat feet, and then Laban came running after him and wanted to say something really nasty, but God said, "Don't say anything good or bad." And they made a covenant with each other, some heap of stones, wasn't it?
Gal'id.
And we've got a name in Hebrew from Jacob and a name of from Laban in Aramaic. And it's just like the one little Aramaic phrase in Genesis, in all of Genesis. It's from Laban.
Did Abraham come from Uz?
Or
Okay.
so I mean, we get an Aramaic phrase from Laban. So some people would say, okay, well, maybe Jacob picked up on the Aramaic, and so he was a perishing Aramean. If you change the vowels around a little bit, though, what if the Aramean is Laban, who is making to perish my father? Now, you'd have to, obviously, Oved is a participle, but if it were going to be something like Ebed, then the Aramean would be causing it to my father. So it's there's another interpretation, though, a wandering Aramean. Rather than saying that my father was perishing, he was wandering. Okay, whatever. Why is it saying this? We're getting more information about my father. Okay, who's my father? Vayered Mitzrayma, and he went down to Egypt. Oh, is that Jacob?
Mm.
Did Jacob go down to Egypt?
Eventually, yes.
With
Eventually,
70,
yes. Exactly. After he thought that Joseph died, and then his brothers came back with some grain and said, "You're not going to believe what happened." Joseph is alive. Jacob came down. He introduced himself to the Pharaoh, said he was 180 years old. Yeah, he went down to Egypt. He died there, and then Joseph took him back up to the land to bury him. Vayagol, and what's the root of Vayagol?
Gur,
Ger.
There.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. A
Vav?
gul is to sojourn or dwell, and a ger is a sojourner. Vayagol, and he sojourned, Sham, there. Now, I don't know what memucan is. Does anybody know what this word means? No, I mean,
The only thing that it makes me remind is the Book of Esther, Memucan.
Yeah.
memucan? I have no idea what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
He's in there.
Chapter 1.
Somewhere in there.
It's a dude named Memucan?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. What is there a noun? Mate? Can anybody think of a noun? Mem tav yod?
Death.
Oh, you're thinking of moot. Moot. So that would be
Yeah.
mem vav tav, but this is mem
Yes.
tav yod. It's actually a rarely used synonym for ish. Synonym. It's not related, but it means man. Gevil, ish, mate, or matim.
Achmatai.
It's not matai because that's actually a question word. Matai, when?
Yes, but okay.
But instead, this is a noun that means men. What you could do is go into your favorite Bible software, find out where this word exists other places in the Bible, and see how it's used.
Another name for Haman. It means
Really?
destined for punishment.
Really? I wonder
Yeah.
what language that is. Memucan.
Persian
In
derivative.
the Midrash.
Persian.
Is it-
Persian. Is it
Persian.
Persian? Okay.
Persian.
Okay. So
I'm looking at
bimte me'at.
the Kerkativ in Esther 1:16 with this particular word. So
Okay.
you're right. It is a tika.
Wow. All right. So here we've got bimte me'at. If mate is men and me'at is few, then we're basically talking about how, a few men were this caravan or posse or group led by my father, probably Jacob, Vaihisham, and he was there, and he became there, Legoy Gadol Atzum Varav. Now, in case you don't get it with the first adjective, we add another, and in case you don't get it with that one, a third is added. We have three synonyms talking about how great, mighty, and abundant this nation, this people became. That's pretty cool to see that many adjectives added to it.
I've
So
heard
this
it
is what
quoted.
you shall say.
How many came out of Egypt into
70.
no,
Seven.
out of Egypt when they left.
Out of Egypt.
Yeah.
Out of Egypt. So the census that we have is only the 600 and something thousand fighting men. So
What
that
was
does
the
not
last word you
include
said?
fighting
Is-
men, men of fighting age. So that does not include people outside of that age. It does not include women, wives, children. So you basically have to extrapolate how many people it would have been. We only know that it was about 600,000 fighting men.
But they had lots of babies, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Of course. Of course. All right.
This is
Any
interesting.
questions on this?
Yeah, Memucan is Persian, and the seven princes of Persia in the reign of Ahasuerus. 7. And it means dignified. So it's a dignified council.
Dignified. But I've read the rest of Esther. I know how dignified they are.
Well, Nehemiah served on that same council.
Are you talking about Ahasuerus?
Well, when
The king that
when
signed off on killing all the Jews, right? At Haman's behest.
well, I'm talking. Yes, yes, in the time of
Yeah.
Esther, but in the
All right.
time of
I think
Nehemiah, it was much
I
different.
wonder if you're referring to the men of the Great Assembly. Are you referring to the men of the Great Assembly, of which Mordecai and Ezra did take part? I don't think that Ezra or Nehemiah served under Ahasuerus, but
Yeah, I don't
Mordecai
know about
did.
that.
Yeah.
But he
All right.
had to go up to assemble more funds to bring back down for the
I
rebuilding,
have a
right?
question.
Thomas, you have a question?
Yes, and the verse before.
Sorry.
Mitzrayim is the direction here. Can I write Le Mitzrayim? Is that the same? Le Mitzrayim
Okay.
or
I like
yeah.
I like that question. So we know that le means to or for, and it could actually mean toward as well. Okay.
Yeah.
If I want to assemble a present for my friend. Okay, so I want to amass some sort of a gift for my friend. While the le would mean it's intended for my friend, it's not moving that direction yet. So what I'm saying is if you put le in front of Mitzrayim, it could belong to it, it could be intended for it, but the kamatz hey on the end shows movement, direction. That's the difference. So it is possible to say le Mitzrayim to mean towards Egypt, yes, but it could also mean something that doesn't show movement. Whereas kamatz hey always shows movement. I say always, should always show movement. That's a great question. That's a great question. Thank you for asking. All right, little itty bitty verse here. Who wants to read? All right, Jesse, it's all yours.
Okay. Uh, Va, vaya,
What? You had your hand
reu.
up.
Yes, I did. Vayareu otanu ha mitzrim va ya'anunu vayitnu alenu avoda kasha.
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 Good. Vayarea. Excuse me, that's not correct. That's an u at the end. Vayareu otanu hamitzrim vayanunu vayitnu alenu avoda kasha. All right, now we talked about ana, meaning either replying or just speaking or something like that. Is this the same root? Vayanu. Let's break it up. What can we peel away from this to analyze it into all of its principal components?
The last new,
Okay, what's the last new?
we, us,
Okay, us, first common plural, us.
va, and,
Good, but there's a patach under it, so it's not
True.
just and.
no.
You're correct that we can peel it away, but it's not just and. What is it?
Vayiktal.
It's got to be vayiktol.
Vayiktal.
So we can see that this yod with the shva is missing the expected dagesh right there. Vayiktol is supposed to take a dagesh. Why isn't it there? Because yod is a liquid letter and it has a shva. All right, so vayiktol. Okay, if it's a vayiktol, then the yod tells
the yod.
us. Yod tells us what?
3ms?
3ms. He. Is it he?
Um,
The evil.
Third masculine plural.
Good. There's the yod at the front, but there's also the u at the end. So it's not he.
Yeah.
It's they. Third
Sorry,
masculine.
second, sorry, second.
Are you saying second
Yeah,
person?
third.
Of
Sorry.
course, with the yod,
Yod
it's
is
third.
the third one. Yeah.
Very good.
Sorry.
All right, so that means our root is
Ayin nun he.
ein nun something missing yod.
Yod,
Right. If you look it
exactly.
up, it would be ein nun he exactly, but the root is ein nun yod, missing yod. But that's the same root we saw earlier, la'anot or ana. So why is it translated as replying, answering, speaking over there? And here it's translated as afflicting. Is someone just talking that much that it's now an affliction? No. No. 2 eins. Did you know Hebrew has 2 eins?
Yeah.
There's the ayin 1, which is pronounced in the bottom of your throat, ayin. And then there's an ayin, there's an ayin 2, which is pronounced at the larynx, which is basically just behind where the letter K is pronounced. Rayin. Rayin. Well, that sounds more like a G. Exactly. Why do we call Azza in English Gaza? Because it's an ayin 2. It's a different ayin. There were 2 sounds that both were represented by the letter ayin, and eventually we lost the other one. Like it wasn't pronounced differently anymore. But originally it was. It was like the letter C can be a K sound, or it can be an S sound, or it can be any number of other things. It could be silent. It could be. The point is, a single letter can have multiple sounds. Ayin represented 2 different sounds, and a handful of other letters did. So that's why we have 2 different roots here. Even though they're both Ayin Nun Yod, the one that is Ayin 1 means to answer. The one that is Ayin 2 means to afflict. It's a completely different root, even though it's spelled the same. There are plenty of examples of this because we have so many letters that represented 2 or possibly 3 different sounds. Does anyone know of any other letters in Hebrew that represented more than one sound originally? And I'm not talking Begad Kafat letters. I'm talking about before that. There's a chet 1, or excuse me, there's a het 1, and there's a het 2. There's a Zayin 1, and there's a right, Zayin 2. It's supposed to be a 2. It doesn't really look like it. There's a Shin. There's a Thin. There's Thadi, Dodi, and Zodi. So that's 3 of them. Which ones am I missing? Oh, well, actually, that's not true. This one would have gone. Okay, yeah, it is. I'm getting a little far off the point. But the point is that there were 29 letters in the Proto-Semitic language, but Hebrew only has 22, arguably 23, because of Sin Shin. Where did all the other ones go? They got swallowed into certain letters that then represented 2 different consonantal sounds. And then eventually those consonantal differences were lost, and now we have roots that look the same but mean something different. Pretty cool, huh? So they afflicted us, vayitanu. How do we break this word up?
Before we do that, did we conclude then that Vayanunu was three masculine plural?
Certainly, yeah, because of the yod and the u at the end.
Okay.
Certainly. 3 masculine. Did you say singular or plural?
Plural.
Okay. And then the nu on the end, Jesse said it was 1 CP. They did it to us.
Okay.
Vayitnu. Does this also have a nu on the end? They did something to us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thomas walked right into that trap.
No.
Context is
I get it
third
because the
person
preceding verb had a nu on the end. No, here we've got Natan.
Yeah.
So that's part of the root.
Yeah.
And there's our yod and u.
Yeah.
But it's
the
okay.
same.
I think in where Thomas is right now, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. So we have to give him a break. So this is also 3 MP.
Yes.
Is it 1 o'clock in Germany?
In Germany?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Wow.
10 after 12.
Okay, so it's after midnight. Oiva, boy, you're
The
incredible.
next
Thank you
day.
so much. Thank you so much
It's
for
good.
spending your time with us at the after midnight. You could be anywhere else. Vayitnu, and they put aleinu upon us avodah, work, right? Avodah is work. Well, we know what kind of work it was, right? Avodah kasha, hard labor, hard work, slavish labor. All
So
right,
if
questions?
if you were to pronounce that Rabodah, would we still be accurate?
Avodah?
Rabodah?
Oh,
Could
I
we-
see. Right. So it's a matter of when. If you're talking before Hebrew was influenced by Aramaic, then you would have to figure out whether it's an Ayin 1 or an Ayin 2. If it's Ayin 1, it's Avodah, and if it's Ayin 2, it's Ravodah. I'm pretty sure this is Ayin 1, but I'm not sure that I could figure that out without comparing it to other Semitic languages. See, Ugaritic, Arabic. I feel like there's one more that I'm not remembering. These 2 languages are a little bit more conservative because they still have essentially all of the original consonants. So if you happen to find a cognate word from the same root, but in one of those languages, then you'll be able to tell whether it's Ayin 1 or Ayin 2. So it takes a little bit of research to go through and find all of the Ayin 1, Ayin 2 differences throughout the entire vocabulary of the Bible, all the more so with all those other languages, all those other letters that can have 2 or 3 different sounds. And so I'm not sure that anyone's really done a comprehensive study of all of them.
Is this why you contend that Ayin is one of the most difficult for Binyamin to learn?
It's
Or
not,
is that different?
it's as far as pronunciation goes, that Ayin is one of the most difficult to pronounce, or what do you mean?
I don't know. I'm just
Okay,
reflecting on your previous comments on
exactly.
Ayin.
So when it comes to the letter Ayin, when I'm teaching, especially my beginners, I don't tell them that there are 2 Ayins. I only say that for my excellent students. The letter Ayin is hard to pronounce because it was originally using your cough muscles to pronounce it, which is not comfortable for most anyone in the world unless you speak Arabic or some other Semitic language that preserves it. So that's why in modern Hebrew, it's just gone silent. And that's really frustrating because Aleph is silent too. How do I know if it's an Aleph or an Ayin? So that's why I try to make a distinction in my pronunciation, even though it's not modern pronunciation. All right, who's my next reader?
I can do.
Thomas, go ahead, please.
Okay. Vanitzak El Adonai Elohei Avoteinu Vayishma Adonai et Kolenu Vayar et Aneyam Onyenu ואת עמלנו ואת לחצנו.
Excellent reading. Did you all notice that how earlier we saw goy gadol atzum varav, noun, adjective, adjective, adjective. Now we get to see, calling out to God, and he saw our noun, noun, noun. It's repeating something 3 times, except now in a negative context rather than a positive one, right? There's got to be some sort of term to describe that, some literary device or something. Anyway, let me read through it. Follow along if you'd like. Vanitzak el Adonai Elohei avotenu vayishma Adonai et kolenu vayar et onyenu ve'et amalenu ve'et lachatzenu. I paused right here because in modern pronunciation, this resh makes almost a r sound, which in the previous slide I just attributed to Ayin 2. So this is, well, I don't want to get into that. But anyway, the original pronunciation of resh was probably a rolled R, like like Spanish or something like, or like a rolled D or R sound, vayar, as opposed to vayar.
Yeah.
And so really pronunciation is always changing. And so I've actually gotten comments on my YouTube channel before. They're like, oh, you're using modern pronunciation, which is all wrong. It needs to be more like the original. I'm like, which time period? Because depending on which time period you choose, it's a different original pronunciation. So I find it a moot point, really. Even if you did know the original pronunciation, who would understand you? So anyway, Vanitzak. What is tzak?
Right.
It's not the same root as yitzchak, right? Don't get those two confused. What is tzahak? Laughter. Yeah, Yitzhak is Isaac. He will laugh. Whereas here it's tzahak, to cry out. We cried out in our distress to the Lord, unto the Lord, God of our fathers, and he heard our kolenu, our voice, our sound. Vayar. What's the root of vayar?
Yar, Ra.
Ra.
Zwei
Very
toll.
good. Very good.
Resh, Aleph, Yod. Yeah, Resh,
Excellent.
Resh, Aleph, Yod.
Excellent.
Yes, yes.
The reason this could be tricky is because there's also a root yara, but it can't be yara. Why?
That's evil.
Well,
Are you talking
yara
about
is to
evil?
fear, right?
Yeah, fear, yes,
But
but
what's
it's
the grammatical reason why the yod cannot be part of the root?
that's a dagish.
Yeah, so that's the dagesh of vayiktol, which means yod is
Yes.
our 3ms. It's not part of the root, so it must be resh aleph yod, which is to see. Wouldn't make sense to say, and he feared. Well, and he saw because of the dagesh. What did he see? Onyeno, our affliction. Ve'et amalenu, our toil. Ve'et lachatzenu. In modern Hebrew, if you want to press a button on a computer, you use the verb lachatz. So here, they didn't have computers yet. Lachatzenu must be our oppression.
Yeah.
They're putting pressure on us to do things that are not cool. All right. Do we have a volunteer for reading the next verse? If not, Jesse gets it.
Can I try?
Eileen, go ahead.
Okay. Vaye. No. Vayi. Zak. Hanu.
This has a lot of syllables. Look at that. Almost every letter is its own syllable.
Yeah.
Vayotzi
See.
enu.
Enu.
Mhm.
Adonai Mitzrayim. Bo. No.
Biyad.
Beyad.
Yeah, you all have noticed so far that I don't split up an audible schwa. I throw it into the next syllable, right? So instead of b yad, I say biyad.
Beyad. Ha'etz komha.
Chazaka.
Hazaka. Hazaka.
What is chazak? Strong. Chazaka, strong hand.
Vosera.
Uvizroa.
Roa.
Mm-hmm.
Ne ot ueha.
Nituya.
Netuya.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Vo. No. Ube metzra. Gadol.
Uvimroa. Gadol. I said it wrong. Uvimora. Gadol. Good, good, good. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Ube a et ot.
Uva otot. See, the stress isn't where we expect. No. Uva ot. Ah, big silly head, Jared. It goes right there. Gosh. Sorry. Setting you up for failure. Go ahead. Uva otot.
Uva otot. Ube me va at im.
Uva moftim.
Fetim.
Uva moftim.
Fetim.
Right. So those are your wonders. Vayotzi enu Adonai mi Mitzrayim biyad chazaka uvizroa ntuya uvemora gadol uvaotot uvemofetim. So here we get more lists, I guess you can call it. Clear screen. So here we've got Biyad Hazaka Uvizro Nituya. This is kind of poetic where you're saying kind of the same thing twice, but with different words. Yad is a hand, Hazak is strong with a strong hand. And then Zroa, or Zaroa in the absolute, is an arm. It's not just the hand or forearm plus hand, it's the whole arm. Nituya, nata, is to stretch out. You can think of like pitching a tent or something, stretching. So this is God's hand reaching out to help. He has a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. He's there to help. He's present. And then we get uvamora. What's the root of this word?
Mem resh aleph.
What if the mem is part of the root pattern? I said root, part of the pattern of the word, like a noun. Then what would the root be?
More, I don't know.
Yod Resh Aleph.
What's yara? We just mentioned it in the previous verse. Instead of ra'a to see, it's yara to
Fear.
fear.
Here.
Or fear, or to there's another word I like to use rather than fear. Revere, maybe.
Fear.
Revere. Basically, do I fear do I fear buses? Well, I mean, not unless I'm standing in front of it, right? I have a healthy fear for large moving objects that I'm in the way of, right? So fear in that sense, or revere. We're not afraid of God because he's a terrible, terrible God. We fear God because he's very powerful, but fortunately he's good. So only if you're standing in front of the bus, only if you're doing what's against God, do you have to worry. The noun from yara is mora. And in fact, there's also a nifal verb, nora, which is something like, terrible or awful or frightful or something like that. God is called nora in many places in the Bible because he can instill fear because of how powerful he is, right? So with terribleness, gadol, great terribleness, uva otot, ot is a sign, and moftim, wonders. Moftim, is it yafat? I'm trying to remember the root for moftim. Is it I don't remember if it's yod pei yod or if it's yod pei tav. I don't have time to look it up. Comments or questions on this verse? All right. Who's my next reader? Seems like we're still reading through that formula from earlier. Remember, we're still at the temple. We're still reciting this formula. Vayvi'enu, and he brought us, el hamakom hazeh, unto the place, this one. Vayiten lanu, and he gave or has given to us, et haaretz hazot, the land, this one. Eretz zavat chalav udvash, a land that is, it says here, flowing, chalav udvash. This is kind of your adverbial phrase, with milk and honey. What's the root of zavat?
Zayin bet he. Or yod, yes.
Or yod? Is that right?
No, it looks bad. I don't know. The tav is can be a he. Nee, that is a root. That is a root. It's a
Which one?
katal.
You're saying the root
Zavar.
is Zayin
Zavat.
Tav?
But it's not a construct. It's a construct.
You're getting warmer.
No, it's not a construct. It's a verb.
Why not? Why can't it be a construct?
Katal.
Okay, so it does have the vowels that look like a katal. Okay, what is it
Yes.
modifying? What's the subject of this word?
Eretz.
Which is feminine.
Yeah.
So is this a feminine tav?
Can be.
Oh, it should be. It should be because it has to match in at least gender and number. And if it's a full-fledged conjugated verb, then it should also match in person. So now we have to figure out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you got for me? What do you got for me?
Yes.
Did,
Okay.
did it click? Do you see what it is?
Mhm.
What? Okay. What feminine form has a tav on the end?
Plural.
Well, oat does, but there's
But,
no oat.
um,
It has to be singular. So also because this is feminine singular. So let me modify my question. What feminine singular form has tav on the end?
Hey.
Okay, so what's zava? Well, that would actually turn into a kamatz. What's zava?
Gold.
No, that's zahav. Same letters, but different order.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so here it is.
I think
This
I
is
can do this in English, but I can't do it in
okay.
Hebrew.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. All right. So this right here is a feminine participle.
Mm.
mhm.
Compare it to ba'a
Mhm.
or shara,
It's a
right?
verb.
Ba'a,
Yeah.
she is coming. Shara, she is
Mhm.
singing. Zava, she is flowing. Flowing with what? Flowing
Mhm.
of, hence the tav, goes into a construct. Wait, you're saying participles can be in construct? Well, yeah, participles are adjectives, and adjectives can be in a construct. If I want to call somebody, if I want to call somebody blue-eyed, instead of you have eyes that are blue, that would be a construct. It would be kachol enayim, kachol enayim. I guess I'll put a yod right there. Blue of eyes. Yes, it can be in construct. And that's what's happening here. A land flowing of or flowing with milk and honey. What does that even mean? Land that's flowing with, you got like white milk pouring down the mountain and honey oozing out of the, what does that even mean?
Well, the preceding word would be, for lack of a better term, to discharge from a woman the feminine in abundance into the land. So the land will grow in abundance um, with what God is giving us. That word honey is the key word.
What's honey?
What abundant? What abundant honey? This
Ah,
you have to read into it because the abundance is white, and what is white? The sadikah.
I see. Taking the symbolism of white. Okay, well, I mean, milk and honey are very expensive commodities or very sought after commodities or whatever. So we could say it's just rich, something like that. Well, did they have a bunch of cows all over the mountain? Well, they had a lot of goats. Does that produce milk? Do they have a bunch of bees producing honey?
Dates.
They had dates and figs. So it's possible that we're looking at kind of the same concept that we get from flowing with milk and honey, just slightly different commodities, more Middle Eastern commodities.
So the abundance of milk would be the goats and sheep, and the honey
So
would be
it's
the dates and palms, the food.
right. So the word zuv does not mean abundant. It means gushing. Right. So it implies abundance, but the verb meaning means to gush. So you think of like a spring that's gushing out. Um, So also here, it's like a land that's just gushing with these positive, wonderful things. Sounds like a nice place to live. All right. Okay. Well, I think we've run out of time. I need to go have some dinner with my family. Thank you all so much for coming and hanging out with me. I hope you got to learn something. I look forward to seeing you all next week for what is next week? Tavo. I feel like we're getting close to the end of Deuteronomy, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're up to what, 29 today?
My
Yep.
favorite chapters.
Oh, is it? Nitzavim. Okay, so Nitzavim, then Vayelech, then Ha'azinu, then Vizot HaBracha. And then that finishes Deuteronomy. Then we'll start back up with Genesis. And after that, if you all would like to support Hungry for Hebrew, here's how you can do it. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Lehitraot. Shalom. Thank
Lehitraot.
you all so very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Hey,
Shalom.
shalom.
Shalom.